Dr. Farrell, we've been talking about your series of books that began with Reich of the Black Sun through SS Brotherhood of the Bell, etc. I want to ask you specifically about the Philosopher's Stone. So,
okay.
It's about alchemy and secret research for exotic matter. That's the subtitle.
Right.
And it strikes me that, we have in our fairy tales this notion that one can create gold out of base metals, et cetera, as the primary goal of alchemy. It reminds us of Rumpelstiltskin, turning straw into gold, et cetera.
Right.
But we now live in an age of modern science where we don't think that kind of thing is possible anymore, except in a Tom Hanks movie. And I want to know, what are you saying differently about alchemy than what we're going to learn about it in the one paragraph in our medieval studies text?
Well, I'm saying several things different. The first is that, and the most difficult for most people to wrap their heads around, is that when you look at alchemical texts, most of them exist from the High Middle Ages on into the early Renaissance. There's a few that are much earlier than that, but most of them exist in that time frame. And all of them, without question, make the assertion that this was successfully done. Now, that raises a simple philosophical question that historians of science don't like to deal with, and that is that if you have repeated claims over the centuries for success, then you have to either acknowledge, number one, that they actually did what they claimed they were doing, or number two, you have to explain it away. And the way that they've classically done this is to point out that there's the possibility and probability in many cases of a hoax, and I don't deny that. But the problem, again, it raises is, why do rational creatures continue to persist in a pursuit over the centuries if there's nothing to it? I mean, even Isaac Newton labored most of his life to try and create gold, all right? Now, there's an interesting thing in reference to this, and then I'll get to the other parts of what I'm doing in the Philosopher's Stone. The interesting thing is there's a reference in, I believe, Paracelsus, who says that in order to do this, you have to accomplish the great work, the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, in putrefying dung. All right? That's the expression he uses. He just puts it right out there. Interestingly enough, there's been a discovery in the last couple of years of a little bacteria that actually eats dung and other stuff and poops out gold. Okay, that's what it does. And this has appeared on phys.org. It's appeared in various science magazines and so on, that this little bacteria actually poops out a bit of gold. Now, that raises questions in and of itself. How do organic living systems transmute anything into another element? Because they're doing it in a way, and again, there's been I didn't even cover this in the Philosopher's Stone, but they're doing this in a way that is not part of the standard nuclear chemistry. In other words, this is baffling to scientists, and it's been noticed by scientists, and it's been taken up as a field of study by those interested in cold fusion. There have been books written about this, nuclear transmutation in organic systems of, radioactive isotopes and so on and so forth. And they're kind of mystified by all of this. So in other words, maybe the alchemists in their pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, of this kind of transmutation, were actually noticing phenomena that have been noticed now in modern times. We don't know, but I suspect that this is the case. So again, I'm trying to reverse engineer without prejudice to the claims. I'm trying to reverse engineer what the claims are saying, and is it possible? Well, yes, it's possible, because now we have these articles about this little bacterium. All right, that's the first part. But the other thing I'm trying to point out in the book, and this is for me the essential component, because what alchemy is really talking about is that underlying all material creation, underlying all of its diversity, there is some common substance that is really the Philosopher's Stone, because that materia prima, the prime matter as they called it, taking the term from Aristotle, that this is what is transmuting itself into all of the manifestations of material creation that we see. Now, that may sound like, again, a kind of kooky ancient cosmology until you study quantum mechanics and you get the idea of the Dirac sea, the particle sea that is constantly surrounding us, of particles popping into existence and out of existence. And what they're talking about in modern physics is precisely some sort of substrate that underlies all material creation and gives rise to it, all right? And this is part of the alchemical model, because what the alchemists are talking about is the transmutation of this substance, whatever it is, into all of the things that we see in material creation. In other words, they're talking about the information content, to use a physicist's expression, in the field, and how that transmutes itself by creating more and more information into the material creation that we see. So in other words, I tend to think of alchemy in the Philosopher's Stone as a kind of a declined legacy, again, from whatever civilization pre-existed in high antiquity, the civilizations we have now. Because when you really stop and look at what alchemy is saying, it's a very, very sophisticated cosmology. It's not a cosmology that should be simply rejected on the basis of the strangeness of medieval texts and how they're trying to find a language to describe it. I think all the indications, once you look at those texts and compare them to some of the things that are going on in modern science, I think you're looking again at a declined legacy.